Welcome to the Power and Purpose podcast. I am your host, Vanessa Soul. Thank you so much for being here. Today's topic of today's podcast is astrology and loss, processing grief according to your moon sign. So basically, in this podcast, I'm going to go through the 12 different zodiac moon signs. And if you are listening for yourself, you can identify which section you need to listen to based on your moon sign. Or if you are listening for a friend or a family member, you can go to their moon sign if you happen to know it. So today is going to be a very insightful podcast episode. And I want to share that I am inspired to do this podcast. One, because I have such a deep appreciation and love for astrology and human design. And also, astrology is such a powerful tool for how we can navigate difficult times, difficult emotions, difficult experiences. And if you've been keeping up with any of my content or my work, you know that I specialize in career and life purpose astrology and human design. And today, because I am personally going through a grieving process, I really wanted to offer some insight on the 12 different moon signs. And our moon sign is so important because it is connected to our emotions and it has several different significations and meanings. So, our moon sign is not just about our emotions, but a big connection and a relationship is there between our moon sign and how we express emotions, how we experience emotions, how we can navigate through them. So, I thought it would be very powerful to go through all different 12 moon signs for today. So that way, again, the intention is getting to know yourself deeper, knowing what you need to support yourself during a time of emotional intensity or during a time of grief or even supporting a loved one. And I want to preface this and say that grieving can happen during any type of change in our life, any type of circumstance that changes abruptly, drastically, or even gradually. So, if you're not grieving a loss of a person per se, this still might be helpful for you because we can grieve a location. When we sell our homes, we can grieve the home that we used to live in. Or if you're going through a relationship shift, like a divorce or a breakup or something like that, you also might be grieving the relationship or the experience. And so you might find this helpful. So you could identify grief however you would like. There's so much flexibility for that. And like I said, my personal inspiration for doing this episode is because I am experiencing my own grieving process. My beloved grandma, Darnitha Jacobs. This is dedicated to her. This podcast episode, um, and she is transitioning to be one of my spirit guides. And so I felt like this morning, her spirit was already prompting me, like, hey, here's this idea for your podcast. And so and also I'm a Gemini moon. And when we get to the Gemini section, you might understand why I decided to do this podcast because it gives me a lot of intellectual stimulation. And that's how I access more of my emotions. So, with that said, thank you for tuning in. My grieving process has been beautiful, but I understand for many of us out there, the grieving process can be very heavy, very intense. There could be a lot of unknowns. It could be very paralyzing. So, I want to encourage you, whether you listen to this full episode or not, please seek out appropriate assistance. Maybe it's working with a healer, a coach, a guide, a qualified grief coach, or something like that, or maybe a traditional therapist. Whatever you feel like you need, really give yourself that support because support is so important. And yeah, without further ado, we will go through the 12 different signs. And if you're listening on YouTube, you can actually just click on the appropriate timestamp. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, you could still look at the timestamp and manually go to the section that you need to go to. Okay, so let's see. And yes, I know I said this briefly, but first, astrology is really powerful for understanding ourselves and really helping us and ourselves navigate this human experience. And it gives us information about ourselves that we can, once we're aware of it, we can now just start to take action. We can just make a decision. We can make a choice, and we don't have to spend so much time trying to figure out what's going on with us or for us. So that's the beauty of astrology. And like I said, with the moon, it's connected to our emotions. It's also connected to receptivity. It's also connected to the mother, the home. It's ruled by Cancer. So protecting the home, nurturing energy, motherly energy, emotional support, those are all some of the basic representations of the moon energy. Okay, without further ado, here are the 12 signs. Aries moons. So if you are Aries moon or you know someone, they're going to grieve through expression of emotions and maybe even some action taking. You might notice that they feel frustration, irritability, anger, even restlessness, right? As they're navigating loss. And so from the outside looking in, you might not understand it or you might take it personal. And the whole point of this information is maybe just to give them space. It may, if they're irritable, if they're frustrated, if they're a little aggressive, in their tone. It's probably not directed towards you. They're that Mars energy, Aries is a sign ruled by Mars. They're just trying to access their emotions. Now, the healthy way for them to do that is really involving the body, doing some exercising, maybe going for a great workout at the gym, maybe running or some vinyasa yoga or something like that that would really activate that fire energy and allow their emotions to kind of move throughout their body. So Aries moons often they want to do something. They want to do something to channel their pain. And again, if you can really use this information to understand the Aries moon in your life, so you could better support them. So you might tell them, hey, you're going through a lot of grief. You should just sit here and watch Netflix. And that Aries moon is going to be like, no, that sounds painful. I'm not going to sit here and watch Netflix. I'm not going to sit here and take a nap. I need to go do something. Okay. So really support your Aries moon with that. Now the next part of support for Aries moon is, like I said, encouraging physical activity like exercise, also adventure, you know, Aries, they like adventure and it doesn't mean that they're running away from their pain. This is what they need to kind of create emotional space and process their emotions. And Aries, because it's such a fiery energy, they could have pent up emotions. Okay. Now, adventure and rock climbing or going for a run on the beach or wherever it is, that's going to help them release those pent up emotions. And so they might benefit from yeah, just that physical activity. So you can support them in that. And then also, Aries is a leadership energy. And so the Aries moon in your family, if you're going through a loss where someone passed away, right? There's a certain process that happens. Typically, there's a service or there's some events or some family gatherings that happen. And so your Aries moon person might want to take the lead. They might want to take leadership in organizing the service for the family member, or again they might want to be take a more active role. And if we don't understand our Aries moon people, or if we don't stop to think about what they need, we might be like, oh no, 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 taking the lead on this might be too much for you, right? And we're not really understanding what is in alignment for our Aries moon people. So just keeping that in mind. Taurus moon. Taurus people can grieve slowly and deeply. And they actually have to first be secure, safe, and stable, and in a comfortable environment to do so. So if your Taurus moon person happens to be traveling while they get the news, they may not even be able to really start their emotional process until they get back home, right? Or maybe until they feel like they're not like, just traveling from place to place or flight to flight. They really need to be in that grounded, stable environment. And then their process can be very slow and deep. Let's see. And then Taurus moons, they're likely to really dive into comforts, and that's an alignment for them. Again, on the outside looking in, when we can't really relate to these different moon signs, we might judge someone based on what they're doing. We might say, oh, that person is trying to suppress their emotions with food, or they're trying to, run away from their emotions by doing XYZ. Well, Taurus, they are really connected to the five senses. So what would help them create emotional space is connecting to touch, taste, sound, sight, feelings. Hopefully I got all five of those right. But a Taurus moon, like getting a massage, like that's touch, right? That might get them really into their body and open up that emotional space. Or for a Taurus, tasting really good food, or making their favorite pasta, or making the family traditional meal that was served every holiday will help them connect to their loved one that might have passed. Let's see, even scents, stimulating the senses through some essential oils, or maybe a scented candle that reminds them of childhood or their family member. That's how they're really going to connect to their emotions. So for Taurus, using those senses. And if you're a Taurus moon, or if you have a Taurus person in your family, you could support them by providing a calm, supportive environment that's stable, secure, comforting. And like I said, they could benefit from rituals that stimulate the senses. So cooking, gardening is great because they're also an earth sign. So really gardening, getting their hands in the dirt can be very stabilizing for them. And lighting candles and honoring their loved ones, like creating something tangible, like maybe doing some type of art project and creating like a pottery piece for their loved one can really help them connect. And that could be a part of their emotional process. Gemini Moon. I'm a Gemini Moon, so I've been excited to get to this one. And Geminis process grief through communication and mental activity, mental stimulation. Gemini moons may intellectualize their emotions, and they might seek out distractions too if they're feeling overwhelmed. But the main thing here is communication and really stimulating their mind. That could be a healthy way. So for me, when I realized that the grieving process was starting, I read books on grief, even though I'm very knowledgeable of grief, and I've been, I'm a certified quantum energy healer, and I've done, training with shamanism and things like that. And I've been helping my clients for years process grief. And so it's not about me learning new things. It was more about me just reviewing information just to kind of stimulate my mind, because that felt good. It felt appropriate for the time where my grieving process was starting. And then also, as a Gemini moon, I'll give you a little quick story here. Like I said, when my grandmother passed away this week, uh, we were expecting it. So it wasn't a complete shock, but that still doesn't take away the emotion. And so one morning I sat with myself. I think it was the morning after we found out that my grandmother had passed. And I was actually feeling quite numb. I was feeling quite numb. And I thought, okay, I'm a Gemini moon. What does my Gemini moon need right now? And I live by myself. It's just me and my dog. So I thought I need to communicate. So the first thing I did is there's two people in my family, and we have a little group chat between the three of us. And so I said, hey guys, I'm gonna record a little prayer for grandma in the WhatsApp chat. And I thought it was just going to be like 2 minutes or something, just to kind of do like a quick little prayer in her honor. This is like the morning after we found out that she had passed. And I started recording, and that prayer to my grandmother ended up being 7 minutes, in that group chat with the two other people in my family. And it was really beautiful. And I just closed my eyes and I let myself flow. And again, this connects to the Gemini really needing that communication. And it was a prayer, during that recording, I was talking to my grandmother. I was saying things that I wanted her to know, and just grateful and appreciative. And then also the woo-woo spiritual person in me. Woo-woo means wise woman, by the way, everyone. It's not a derogatory term, but the woo-woo part of me really wanted to do light language during that prayer because that was mentally stimulating for me, and it's another form of high vibrational or healing communication. It bypasses the conscious mind, if you know anything about light language, and it goes straight to the subconscious. And so I just included it in my prayer, right? And that was a 7-minute prayer, and that prayer that morning, that was a thing to actually help me come out of that numbness that I was previously feeling. And then later that day, I felt so connected to my emotions. I felt like I was giving myself time and space to go through my emotional process. So that is a real life example from me as a Gemini moon, something that's fresh, something that happened for me this week where I was really able to dive into that. And throughout the rest of the week, I just communicated. I just knew that communication verbally with other people, not just to myself, but to other people, was going to be a really big part of my process. And keep in mind, this is going to differ from sign to sign. That's why it's really important to know your moon sign or the moon sign of your loved one if you're supporting someone through grief. Okay. Let's see. So I gave you some things about the Gemini moon. Okay, so here's how you could support yourself or your Gemini person is encourage them to talk about their feelings, right? With friends, a therapist, or even journaling. But I really do think verbal journaling is best for a Gemini moon, but they could be a little reluctant depending on what their other placements are. If they're like a Scorpio sun and rising in a Gemini moon, they communicating, they might feel like a push and pull between that because they might want to be private at the same time. So there might be like a little bit of an opposition there. But verbal journaling in general is going to help most Gemini moons. And then creative outlets like writing, storytelling, and then being in groups. Geminis are great at being with other people. They're great at socializing. And it's not like they're going to be in the perfect mood to socialize, but being in community, especially like a grieving group, can also be very helpful. I remember when my dog passed away, my first dog in 2018, that was like my first real experience of grief as an adult. And that was really, really tough for me. And at the time, I was not deep into astrology. I don't even think I was really interested in it that much at all, actually, at the time. But the first thing that I did, I think within the first week of losing my dog, is I went on Facebook and I found a bereavement group for people who lost their pets, right? And so that was my community online, and I was able to repost and post my own feelings in that Facebook group. So that's just proof of my Gemini moonness and how it's helped for me in 2 different situations. Cancer moon. Cancers feel grief very deeply, very personally, and often they might want to retreat inward to process their emotions. And so this is not necessarily negative if you see this happening with someone that you know or even yourself. Sometimes I think people can judge either themselves or others, like, oh my gosh, I think I'm over isolating. And yes, having discernment is really important, but with the Cancer moon, you're actually just meeting your own needs, going in inward first and then knowing when to come out of your cave, knowing when to come out of your house is also important. But again, going inward is just part of your process or your loved one. Okay. And then Cancer moons, they might struggle to let go as well. Um, and nurturing energy is going to help them. So whether they are nurturing others or nurturing themselves, nurturing energy is just a big theme for Cancer moon. So that could help them with the letting go process. And actually, I kind of want to correct that. When we're grieving, we don't really need to let go. The process of grief is not about letting go. It's just about experience. It's about receptivity. It's about love. Okay, that's what the grieving process is about. So, um, yeah, I'll leave that there. So with Cancer moon, you can support yourself or others by offering that emotional safety and validation. Just validate that person's feelings. Validation is so powerful. I've been helping others as a energy healer, intuitive healer for 4 years now, and quick side note, validation for inner child work or any type of big life disruption can be so healing. And I'm so shocked because it proves itself to be true over and over again when we say, hey, I actually was not overreacting as a child, or this emotion is valid for me. That is just so uh perfect. I don't even know. I was gonna say so healing, but it's so perfect. Validating our own feelings. It's not about getting validation from others, but validate. Like if you're crying nonstop as a Cancer Moon, validate it. Like actually tell yourself it's okay. Give yourself permission. That's what that means. Okay, that could be very helpful for you. And then also, if you're supporting another Cancer Moon, helping them do something creative or honoring family traditions or spending time at home or going back to the childhood home or something like that, or even spending time in water can be very helpful. So make yourself a nice bath, or if you're supporting a child through grief, maybe give them some extra time in the bath or take them to the pool or the ocean. Yeah, water is very helpful for Cancer Moons. Leo moon. Leo's, oh, and I'm a Leo rising, but a Leo rising is so different from a Leo moon. Leo moons experience grief dramatically, and I do not say that negatively at all, but they might be a little bit more dramatic, especially on the onset of any type of grieving process. Um, so acknowledging their pain, and for Leos, they also need to acknowledge that showing their emotions, be like being expressive, right? Showing their emotions, being expressive is a part of their process. Now in society, some of us judge others for being dramatic. We're like, oh my God, that person's so dramatic. Or, we've all been to maybe a funeral service in the past where Aunt Sally was like the most dramatic person at the whole entire funeral service, right? And maybe that person was being over dramatic, or maybe they were also a Leo moon. And Leo moons can't help it. Again, this is just part of their natural process. They're very outwardly expressive most of the time. Not all Leo moons, because keep in mind, guys, you have so much going on in your natal birth chart. You have a sun sign, you have a rising sign, you have all types of different aspects in different houses that impact this. But for the general population of Leo moons, they're going to be a little bit more outward. Okay. And a quick example of this is, again, using my own experience. This whole podcast is dedicated to my grandmother. It's inspired by my experience this week. And in my group chat with my two other family members, I told you I'm the Gemini Moon, and I did that prayer and light language and all the things. And the other two people in that group text, they're Leo moons. And so for one of them, the moment that person found out that, my grandmother had actually passed and transitioned, her reaction was so outwardly expressive. And I was just on the phone with her to support her. And I knew I knew what to expect because I know astrology, right? I didn't judge her. I just validated it, and I just held space because I knew that she needed to start her grieving process in that particular way, and that was most natural to her, right? And so yeah, so it's very beautiful when we know this stuff about our loved ones. We could just hold space for them so much deeper. We could just really be there, be receptive to their own process. Okay, so if you have a Leo moon in your life, help them process by encouraging creative activities, like anything self-expressive, performing a poetry piece in front of the family, or just diving into their poetry, or writing, or art, or a public ceremony. The Leo moon person is going to really honor the funeral service. That's going to be very important for them. On the contrary, a more private sign, like maybe a Cancer moon or a Scorpio moon, they're more private with their emotions. They may not place as much significance on the funeral service as much as the Leo moon would. Okay, so just have that grace and understanding for everyone's different preferences. Virgo moon. Virgo tends to analyze and compartmentalize emotions, and it's not necessarily negative for them. It might just be a part of their process. Virgos are very organizational. So when they're compartmentalizing their emotions, they're just trying to organize things first so then they can go back through the process in like a order of operations, so to speak, and process it that way. So just respect your Virgo moon person's process and try not to judge it because it works for them. It's how they feel safe, like organization and having the details kind of set up for them to do that is going to be appealing to them, right? That's going to make sense to them subconsciously or consciously. And then Virgos, focusing on their health and self-care is very important. So just try to support them in that. On the outside looking in, sometimes we can judge people like, wow, you're going to go get a massage during this time of grief, but for a Virgo moon or any earth sign, that can be very grounding. That's them giving themselves what they need. That's self-care so that they feel safe to access their emotions and explore their emotions. So if you're a Virgo moon or if you have someone in your family, you can support them by encouraging them to slow down, focus on self-care, and any grounding activities like yoga, going outside, sitting in the sand, in the forest, on a rock, connecting to nature, journaling. Anything that has a process is going to be helpful, like any kind of structured process is going to be helpful for a Virgo. So yes, you can encourage that for your Virgo moon person. Libra moon. Libras seek balance and harmony and beauty in everything. And even during a time of grief, they're also going to value any type of balance, harmony, or beauty. So supporting them in that. And Libras need to focus on relationships just in general. That's just a soul contract that I think most Libras, Sun, Moon, Rising have, even North Node Libra or some other aspects as well. So Libras are going to really want to dive into their relationships, activate their relationships with certain people so that they can seek the internal balance and the internal harmony. It's not about being codependent. Again, this is just like what's going to be activating for them and create that space. And also, I'll say, be really easy with your Libra moon when it comes to making decisions. You might find that it's even more challenging than that for them than usual to make a decision. So try to make it easy on your Libra moon person, okay? Try not to overwhelm them with like 10 different decisions in one day. If you know anything about Libra's sun, moon, rising, they typically have challenges with being decisive. So they could experience a lot of indecision, right? It could be, they can kind of go back and forth and not be able to make a decision. And again, this is just general. It does depend on what's happening in your, in the rest of your chart. If you're like an Aries sun, but a Libra moon, Aries, they're a little bit more decisive. You might find balance. You might be like, no, having a decision, making a decision is not hard for me, Vanessa, and that can be valid. So it does depend on what else is going on in the chart. But just in general, have grace. Your Libra moon person may not be in the right headspace to make a decision that might be very stressful. So if you can make the decision for them or delay the decision or make it simple instead of giving them 10 options for their decision-making process, maybe just give them 2. So it could be a little bit more easy for them to make a decision. Okay. And then you could support yourself or your Libra moon by, again, encouraging open conversations about their feelings, creating beauty in their space, maybe bringing them some fresh flowers for their home or something that's going to make their home space more beautiful, create more harmony and balance. So that way, during this time when they're tapping into their emotions, they feel like they have that beauty around them as they're surrounded by beauty. And if they're grieving the loss of a loved one, this person might want to decorate the memorial space. They might want to be the beauty ambassador, so to speak, for the funeral service. So allow them to do that. That's their cup of tea. That's their specialty. That's also going to feel, it's going to bring harmony for them during this process, most likely. Okie dokie. Scorpio Moon. This is a deep one. Scorpios, we're so intense and emotional, right? And I'm a Scorpio sun, but a Scorpio moon can even experience intense emotions more so than the rising or the sun sign. Scorpios feel very intensely and privately. They can be very private people. Ironically, being publicly vulnerable for a Scorpio typically is not that easy for them. So they might just need to be in their own space. They may not pick up the phone. You're trying to check on them to see if they're okay, if you know that they just lost a loved one. But also kind of respect their space and give them time to get back to you because they might just need that private time alone at home before they reach out to anyone, right? Or maybe they're only texting you first and then before they hop on the phone, they just need that alone time. So really try to understand it from that perspective. And Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto. Mars is the traditional ruler, and Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. And Pluto is about death and rebirth and transformation. So typically, Scorpios are going to be going through a whole like transformative process. They're probably going to be transforming their identity during this grieving process. And my personal opinion, I think that grief and losing a loved one can initiate uh, uh, any type of transformational process. Basically, I think that we all kind of become a different person when we gain a new person in our lives or when we lose someone in the physical realm. But this is probably 10 times more true for the Scorpio. So really just understand that if they are being very private, they're also navigating their own personal death and rebirth journey during the loss of a loved one. Okay, and so you could support your Scorpio person or yourself by just providing a safe space so they could explore their feelings without judgment. Again, vulnerability might be a little challenging for your Scorpio, which is ironic because they're so emotional. But it's like just because they're emotional doesn't mean that vulnerability is that comfortable for them, if that makes any sense. So just try to release any judgment if you can. And Scorpios can benefit from shadow work, therapy, spiritual practices, meditation, rituals, all the woo-woo stuff. Like the Scorpio can really dive into that, and that can be very helpful. I have something amazing that is unfolding for the whole month of December in preparation for 2025. And that is my brand new container, Astro Aligned Business Bootcamp. It's a business bootcamp with one-on-one support, community support, and a full online self-paced course, all bundled together in one monthly membership. Again, I am launching this for the first time ever in December 2024 in preparation. It's going to be happening all year long for 2025, and you can join now. You can get early bird pricing, and you can lock in early bird pricing for your first 3 months of membership. Super, super exciting. Now, here's what it is. It will help you revolutionize your business with high-level astrology and human design strategies. Yes, operating your business in accordance to what is going to work best for your energy, your energetic blueprint. We can get instructions, specific instructions on your highest probabilities for your business. So if you are really ready to rebrand your business, re-strategize, set a strong foundation going forward, or maybe you are just starting out your business, this will be absolutely necessary and helpful, and it will help you accelerate with ease and grace. Check out the link again for the month of December. You get the early bird pricing of $318 a month, and you lock it in. You lock it in for the first 3 months. I am super excited. You'll get one-on-one strategy calls, and there's a group container, a group call every month alongside the online course material. I'll see you in the Astro Aligned Bootcamp. Sagittarius Moon. Sagittarius, they might need to get a little philosophical, right? They might need to dive into their faith or their spirituality or their belief systems. And so your Sagittarius Moon person might want to dive back into their faith or religion, or they might want to go to church more often, or they might want to hear their spiritual leader more often, or reading certain books about philosophy or life and death, and just like that philosophical type stuff, like Carl Jung and philosophers like that might be their cup of tea during this time. Also with Sagittarius Moon, traveling and exploration can also just help with the self-discovery process for them. So again, try not to judge. If you're a Sagittarius Moon person, if they decide to go on a trip during the loss of a loved one, we could easily, some of us who are looking on the outside in, we could judge that person and be like, oh wow, they're running from their feelings. They're distracting themselves, right? We might be tempted to judge that. But if it's a Sagittarius Moon, that trip that they take to France or to, I don't know, the jungle or somewhere can actually give them the self exploration that they need to even explore their emotions. All right. So you could support your Sagittarius Moon or yourself by encouraging them to explore their spiritual beliefs, encourage activities that expand their perspective, like reading or traveling or journaling. Anything like that is going to be helpful for the Sagittarius Moon. Okay, Capricorn Moon. This one's an interesting one. Capricorn Moon in general, outside of grief, they can knowingly or unknowingly, basically subconsciously or consciously, feel challenged with emotions in general. And with grief, they might feel even more challenged. And so they may not outwardly express their grief. They might be very stoic with their emotions or their emotional process. And that's okay. Again, try not to judge because this is who they naturally are. Let's see, what else can I say about Capricorn moons? Capricorns are about responsibility and hard work and dedication and consistency. And so they might need to finish or complete some ongoing responsibilities before they can make space to even feel their emotions. Okay. And that's not right or wrong. It's just, it is what it is. It's a part of their process. So if they have a deadline at work, or if they're trying to their book is getting published in a couple days, or if they're in school and they're trying to finish a big project or a final paper or something, you might find it insensitive for them to keep focusing on their responsibilities. But again, release judgment for that Capricorn Moon person. Completing their responsibilities and meeting those deadlines, or kind of checking off their responsibilities, so to speak, is how they can get to the point to where they can make emotional space to see what they feel. And practical processes can really help them. Structured processes can really help a Capricorn Moon. A Capricorn Moon person could benefit if I don't even know if there's a grief coach out there, if that exists. I'm sure it does. If that grief coach has a practical process that's structured, a Capricorn Moon person might like that. That might be really appealing to them. All right, so you can support yourself or others if they are a Capricorn Moon by helping them find time and space to feel their emotions. Again, that's probably going to be after they complete their responsibilities. And like I said, structure grief processes and memories. And also I'll add this in, any type of traditions in the family can be helpful. And then grounding. Capricorn, they're a grounded energy. And so maybe, going hiking or sitting on top of a rock or just being in nature, that could also be very nourishing for them. Aquarius Moon. Aquarius may intellectualize their emotions, and they might approach their grief in very unconventional ways. So try to release judgment and just leave space and flexibility for them to do so. One thing about Aquarius in general, if you're Aquarius sun, moon, or rising, you might already know that Aquarius have the tendency to become emotionally detached. Okay. And it's not negative or positive. Everything in astrology is about, is it the right place or right time for that quality, right? That's how I see astrology. It's not about, oh, being emotionally attached is positive or being emotionally attached is negative. It's right place, right time. A side note, I feel called to share that I have a friend who um, they work for a child trafficking organization where they work to put it into child trafficking and catch the traffickers and save the children type of thing. Now, this person is like a double Aquarius, I think. And I forgot which two it is. I can't remember if it's their sun and their rising or their moon and their rising or what's the combination. But the point is that I used to wonder before I really knew their astrology. I was like, wow, how does this person do it? I would be a mess. I would be an emotional wreck as a Scorpio, as a Gemini moon, if I had to work in that realm because I care about children. You guys might know my stance on the adult industry, the sex industry. I don't know if I could say that here on YouTube without getting anyway. I feel very strongly about it because I used to be in that industry and I want to help others. Okay, so I have a lot of personal feelings about it. Basically, um, you know, I'm hoping as a society, as humanity evolves, we can start to heal that shadow aspect of our of the human condition, right? And so that we're not selling sex for money or we're not selling our bodies for money. Now, back to the example with the person who works for a child trafficking organization and they save children, their emotional detachment helps them get the job done. They care about humanity. That's why they do what they do. That's why they're saving the children. That's why they're doing that very difficult, high demand job. But at the same time, they don't they are able to emotionally detach just enough to get the job done. So that's an example of how we can have a neutral perspective when it comes to emotional detachment. It's just about, is it the right time or place for that person to really for them to exercise that emotional detachment. Okay, so that's a side note. I know that was a little lengthy, but I just felt really called to share that. So going back to Aquarius Moon, they might feel emotionally detached in the beginning of their grieving process. It's not right or wrong. Just let them go through their process, right? Their intuition, their subconscious, if they're consciously aware, if they have some self-awareness, they will find their way to emotionally connect and express and release and all the things. It's just going to look different than your process. It's going to look unconventional. You may not understand how, where, why, or when an Aquarius moon person is going to have an emotional release or go through their grieving process. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And then to support your Aquarius moon, or if you're an Aquarius moon, connect them with like-minded groups or humanitarian efforts. So maybe if your Uncle John passed away and Uncle John had a favorite humanitarian organization that he used to volunteer for every weekend or every month or something like that, maybe the Aquarius moon person who lost Uncle John, maybe their way of processing their emotions and connecting to their Uncle John is volunteering, for that same organization, just like Uncle John did. Okay. Even if they don't show emotions outwardly or they feel emotionally distant, again, it's their process. They're going to connect in a very different way, unconventional way, or humanitarian way. So just allow that to unfold for your Aquarius moon person. Pisces Moon. Pisces, they are so intuitive. Another water sign. They are very creative and they're very spiritual. Even if they don't like see themselves as spiritual, I find I even know a Pisces person that's an atheist, right? And they're like the most spiritual atheist I've ever met. It's very refreshing just to see something so unique. I say that in the most positive light, and I don't judge anyone for any faith. I love everyone the same, whether they believe in God or they don't. I love everyone the same. I made that comment. Hopefully, you can understand just to just to honor how Pisces, they're just very spiritually or intuitively in tune, regardless of what their beliefs are. So, Pisces moons, they can, one of the shadow qualities is they can escape reality. But again, it's not about right or wrong, positive or negative. It's, is it the right place and time, and they will discover that for themselves. But Pisces can really use their dreams. They can connect to their loved one in their dreams. They can do imagination processes, visualization processes. I have some clients where we did more visualization practices during our grief framework, because I knew that that would really serve that person the best. And that was, I would take them into the imagination world and into the astral realm, so to speak, and they thrived in those practices during our sessions because they were a Pisces moon, or maybe Pisces sun or rising as well. So spirituality is really important for them for processing loss and visualization, dreams, art, anything creative, music. Yeah, just about anything creative. So you can support yourself or your Pisces moon person by offering them empathy, give them space to express their emotions. And because they're so intuitive, they actually might start their grieving process early. They might know it and feel it before anyone else does. So just validate them, or maybe be neutral if they're starting their grieving process early, or if they're intuitively picking up on something. And then Pisces can really benefit from, meditation or meditation retreats or plant medicine retreats or music or anything that really connects them to the spiritual realms. Beautiful. That is a wrap. I went through all 12 signs, all 12 moon signs. So my intention for this was for you to really explore yourself and what you need during your grieving process, whether you're grieving a loved one or not. Grief can show up in so many different ways. So feel free to define it for yourself. And for me as a Gemini moon, diving into intellectual and mental stimulation, this was so nourishing for me as I'm going through my personal grieving process this week. I'm releasing my relationship with my grandma that I had in the physical realm, and allowing it to transition into the spiritual realm. And there's a remapping exercise and all types of other tools that we could really use later in the process when we're ready for it. But in the beginning, this list of the moon signs, when you connect to your moon sign, it will really just kind of help you in the beginning of the grieving process, or maybe middle and end. I mean, integration in life is not linear. We like to think of it as it is, but it's all mixed in different. We can go from all kinds of different steps in different directions. So just allow yourself the space to do that. Thank you so much. Namaste, everyone. Hey, Tribe, thank you so much for tuning in to today's podcast. I can't wait to share next week's podcast episode with you. Now, to stay up to date, go to the link for the Power in Podcast website. Sign up for the newsletter so you can actually get on our newsletter, and you'll get monthly emails about our podcast episodes ahead of time. So you'll get to see which episodes are planned out for the whole entire month, so that way you know when to tune in. So check out the Power in Podcast website. You could sign up for the newsletter to sign up for those updates, or maybe you just go to the website and check out all the episodes that are highlighted there. Thanks again. Have an amazing, inspiring day.